Hello, everyone, and welcome to a recap of the third week of playoffs here in the Optimal Championship League. I am JarlCarl, as always, joined by Llama on our as yet to be named podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, no name yet, but another week has passed. Another couple of teams eliminated, unfortunately, and we're into the top four, Carl. It's been a long season, but we're finally here.
Indeed, we are. We are getting to the point where we're eliminating really good teams. Teams that we have been talking about, potentially having a chance to go the full distance are no longer with us, including some, some the death of some dreams. I think is maybe a
Yeah.
subtle way to put that.
Yeah, I mean, don't want to spoil it too much just yet, but kind of a little bit surprising week to me, I would say. And some shakeups here and there, some definitely good planning by some teams, and I'm excited because I think we got some bangers going to this next week as well.
Yes, indeed we did. We got some good series this week, and obviously upper bracket final coming up this upcoming week. I'm sure we'll spend a good amount of time on that matchup. That is extremely hype. You better be there to watch that game. But let's
Yes.
hop into the games that already took place before we look ahead. Let's start with the first one we have in the notes here is OE Infinity against the Bad Guys.
Yeah, this was kind of a interesting matchup. There has kind of been a trend where it's been 3-1 for almost every single series, except I think the first one, which was a 3-0.
Yep.
So a lot of 3-1s. This one 3-1 as well. OE Infinity taking this one in 3-1 fashion over the bad guys.
Yes, indeed they did. I think I was sort of expecting this to be a little bit closer of a
Yeah.
series. One of these days we're going to get 5 games. I'm very confident. We haven't quite gotten there yet. Robin popping off in a lot of these games, doing very well, at least in game number one. Um, Not quite as close as I thought it would be, but I think bad guys, they still put up a fight, took a game off OE Infinity, but Infinity is a team that looks very strong at this point, and I think, definitely appears to be capable of taking on those top teams.
Yeah, it really seems that way. I think kind of unfortunate the way their kind of season ended. I think back to that like if they were maybe into that second seed, maybe they have a little bit easier run on through. But yeah, it does seem like that kind of gap is there. That between the top three, that we are kind of saying, okay, the bad guys during the end of the season, they're on the rise, they're on the rise, they're on the rise. But they kind of had a ceiling that they hit just at the end.
The stock market goes down too. It turns out, and the green stocks unfortunately turned a little bit red for the bad guys here. I think the main thing that stuck out to me was OE Infinity in all three of the games they won, both mid and AD carry are very far ahead. I know we've talked about their mid lane
Yeah.
before, kind of being a little bit of an outlier in terms of being able to carry through that position. But both Poseidon and Robin going off makes, I think, a very scary team. It's this dual threat, and they're both getting ahead when their team's getting ahead, which I think is showing just kind of a general dominance in the game when they get rolling.
Yeah, and it is kind of really tough because the bad guys, again, their strategy of what they've wanted to play the entire season is we're going to pick random stuff, we're going to try and throw you off, and we'll see what happens. And unfortunately, when you're losing mid and when you're losing bot, you just can't get thrown off, right? As soon as you lose mid, that starts flooding over to all your other lanes. And then how do you play the game? You just don't.
Yeah, absolutely. I think generally when you lose, when you're losing, especially losing significantly, 2 out of the 3 lanes, that's already not good. And top lane not really in a place where the meta is providing for super hard carry top lane. Right, we don't have a Darius coming out with 10 kills that can actually go up against that top mid. We've seen a
Maybe.
lot of kind of these bruisers tank style out of Poppy. There was some Shen.
Yeah.
They're not really going to turn the tide of that game, and so I think just two unfortunate lanes to lose for the bad guys. They weren't really able to get into that brawl style. It doesn't look like, at least from the post game screen, weren't really able to start turning the tide back on OE Infinity, and sort of just got slowly pushed back and beaten down.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like. It also, I mean, we've given praise to Robin like a lot of times this season, and for being our editor, kind of throwing them a bone as well. But
Hmm.
I mean, the champ pool is really wide, which is really important. On 80 carry, we might be a hint towards later, but just playing Ash might not be able to get you through a series, and being able to flex to like the Kaisa and the Zaya, and still be able to have those crazy awesome performances, just makes their champion pool and dominance even more greater.
Yeah, overall, I mean, the 3 games they won, Robin on 3 different 80 carries. One game on the Ash, one game on the Zaya,
Yeah.
and one game on the Kaisa. All double-digit kills, 12 or 13 in both games. Looking just incredibly, incredibly strong. It was the Talia, the Cassiopeia, and the Swain also for Poseidon in the mid lane. So large champ pool in both respects. Also some bans at the 80 carry position in all these games. Caitlyn banned every game by OE Infinity, so obviously taken off the table for Bastard Child on the other side, but also just Robin not able to play that either. So the champion pools being so wide, it's so useful in these long series.
It is. I mean, I think it's also important we talk about. I kind of mentioned in the notes that we also talked about it last week that red side has kind of been pretty bad. Like,
Yep.
you have that counter pick, but no one's been really able to utilize it super well. So for the bad guys, especially, I feel like you would have wanted to pick blue side in game number two. Maybe, get one of those crazy first picks and force them into something else. But it might not have mattered in the overall scheme of things that they pick red side game two, but I think it might matter just a little bit. I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
Yeah, I think it gives us something interesting to talk about, and I think it is a point worth making since it seems just a little bit strange to go for that choice. I think the last pick in that game, if I can quickly find it, was Zed, I think.
Oh,
Um, which is that correct? I think that's correct. They picked Zed last
yeah.
in that game. To me, that's not screaming. We needed this pick. We needed this counter pick. Um, so maybe not the choice that I would have gone with, but maybe it has worked for them in the past in scrims or whatever. So I'm not entirely sure what the thought process is, but it hasn't really worked out. I think in these last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate. I think it will be exciting, like to look forward, like to think to like the next season of the Optimal
Yep.
Championship League and see like the bad guys, how much improvement they've actually shown. Like one of the teams that has really, really stepped it up. And if you told me they were gonna end like top 5, 6 with a battle against OE Infinity, I might have not even expected that.
Yeah, this is absolutely true. I think it would be very fun to see the same team sort of like season after season, right? We've gotten very
Yeah,
invested, I think, in these teams, doing the podcast and sort of being invested in the league. I'm sure we'll see some of the teams again going forward. I think it's also been interesting to kind of see the teams as the meta has shifted throughout the season since we
yeah,
play on the live patch. So big changes come out, boom, that's what they're playing on the next week. And I think again that wide champion pool sort of does help. I think Robin's in a happy state in the 80 carry meta, able to play these kind of little bit longer range, pump out some damage. Seems to be doing quite well. Um, so Infinity, scary team. They're through to the next round. Um, Looking forward to that matchup. They're getting close. You're one win away from
oh
contending
yeah.
for that championship.
Yeah, one win away. I think it's kind of interesting. I think it'll be a real battle. I guess I have to ask you this question. We kind of talked about it last week that there seemed to be a river between like the village of like the top 3, the
hmm
bottom 4, and then maybe 5 through 7. I mean, do you still think that gap is there? Like, do you think the bad guys actually ever had a chance in the series?
I think they had a chance in this series. Yeah, I think if they were able to get the way they want to play, they're able to get sort of
Yeah.
a scrappy game. If the draft goes a little bit better, I think they certainly could have made it a much closer series. And I think a couple of things go a different way, one team fight changes or something, and you can end up pulling a game back.
Yeah.
Um, I think is OE Infinity capable of fighting against those top teams? I think we're going to find out at some point. It's just been so long since they've played. We've really only gotten that one piece of information, which is Shield beating them in week number 2. So even that was a couple weeks ago. That's against the very top team. So I think there's not a lot of data at this point, on how these teams are at in
Yeah.
their current form. My gut says no, and I think Shield is still the prohibitive favorite. But I think eventually we'll get to find out, and I think Infinity definitely could maybe challenge their sister team Nova, and potentially fight for a spot in the grand finals if all the cards break the right way.
Yeah. I could see it. They definitely have proved they deserve a spot moving on forward. Obviously, I think the bad guys, like you kind of mentioned, they showed a little gleam. That game number 3 where they
hmm
actually won. I just looked at it, it was under 20 minutes. Like it was a super fast game, went exactly the way they want to. So yeah, maybe in a different timeline they can win the series, but
Moving on to the other match in the lower bracket this week, Dynasty Chaos Emerald versus Elysium Valor. Llama, spoiler alert, this is not the result that we thought was going to happen. Dynasty Chaos takes a 3-1 victory over Valor.
yeah, this is like kind of really shocker to me because like last week we were saying, okay, Dynasty Chaos Emerald, really good job, right? You're the 7 seed. We were talking about in the podcast some weeks that this team might have never made the playoffs. We were talking
Yeah,
that okay, maybe they're looking like the 9 seed, maybe they're falling out at 10th. I know we had the 2 disqualifications, but there were points where we had this team very, very low, and now they are in the top 4.
yeah, they shocked us, to be honest. I think this is
Yeah,
one of our big whiffs on the prediction desk. Great to see. It's always fun when playoffs don't go just 1, 2, 3, 4
yeah.
in the last 4, right? That's no fun. It's great to see those upsets. I think this definitely counts as, I would say, one of the biggest upsets of the season.
Yes.
At least in our mind, Valor eliminated here in 3-1 fashion, and Dynasty Cast Emerald, they looked pretty good. Overall, these were some pretty long games, at least the first two, but carrying in a lot of different positions. They had, from the AD carry position, from the mid jungle positions, both in the first game, um, and sort of assorted throughout. So I think overall, a pretty wide ranging victory by Dynasty Cast Emerald. Maybe they took a little bit longer than they would have wanted to, but they got the job done, and they look strong.
Yeah, they look really strong, and I think Arrow was actually kinda bragging in some of the chats and,
Hmm.
like, kinda going off for everybody for, like, putting them so low, but they really did their homework. They studied up for this game, and kind of like we were talking about before, they banned the Ashe, and Elysium Valor just kinda fell apart.
Yeah, Elysian Valor is a team that looks great when they play Ash. They won their one game this series on Ash, and a lot of the other games that was not an option for them to pick. It was banned away, and I think that's a really really smart decision. Obviously, that's not as ingenious read, but it is important that you are doing that due diligence before the games, that you're sort of going through figuring out, okay, what can we ban, not just relying on the OPGGs. And I think it shows an awareness by Dynasty Cast Emerald. They've done their homework, like you said. They were there to play, and they definitely showed up to play. I don't know, what happened exactly for Valor, but Dynasty Chaos able to take those games in pretty strong fashion.
Yeah, and I think it's also that expansion of the pool for the AD carry. I mean, we're talking about Dilly playing, a Sivir and a Misfortune. Those are two champions that you really have to know the ins and outs of, because yes, they're kind of on the edge of meta, but you really have to like be good with them to actually win games.
Yeah, I would certainly describe both of those AD carries as sort of fringe picks. They're not awful.
Yeah.
You're not picking a Callista or something, although I'm a personal favorite of mine. But Sivir
Ooh.
is a champ that, right, you can end up just either standing way too far forward because she has not a lot of auto attack range, getting one shot, or being like, oh, I'll just stand here in the back, and you don't do any damage. So you need to sort of figure out what that mid range is that you can get those ricochets out, but also still do something. And really well done, I think, by Dilly on those champs. Guster Posey, a great first game. Kabita from the mid lane also having a strong performance. So this really felt like it was a team effort, that they really came together and said, "Hey, folks, we can win this game," and they did.
Yeah, they really showed us. They showed everyone. For Valor, we say goodbye to them. But I do have a couple big questions. The first one I do want to ask: whenever there's like a really low seed in the playoffs, everybody always writes them off because it's the
Yep.
easy thing to do, right? They didn't look good in the regular season. Maybe they're ramping up. So I gotta ask you: is this kind of like maybe the NRG effect, where like Elysium and Valor, they're like, oh, those Dynasty Chaos guys, we're gonna beat them super easy, and then didn't prepare for the series, and then just go in and get smacked?
I think potentially. I think it's hard, even if you're a diligent team, right? To
Yeah,
really to prepare in the same way for Dynasty Has Emerald, the seventh seed. Even just seeing that seven next to their name, compared to how you would prepare to face Oenova with the two next to
yeah,
their name. I think it affects how you go into the game. I think it probably affects how you play in the game. It's just different. And from coaching teams and playing on teams, I remember, I was a lot more focused when I played against Maryville,
yeah.
when I was playing for UW Madison, than I was when I was playing, the 58th seed, right? I was
Right.
really focused. Oh my God, we could do it, people. It turned out we could not do it. But I think the opponent does matter, even unconsciously, and I think that may have been the pitfall for Valor. Sort of looking to that rematch, maybe have the Elysium matchup in the future, and they ended up slipping a little bit, and it did not go well for them in this series.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, right, that we don't get to see the double Elysium. I know that's the first interview I had the first week of
Yep.
the season, that they really wanted to see both those teams in there, which unfortunately they can't anymore. But I guess another one of my big questions is, do you think Elysium Valor would have been able to beat the bad guys if this is,
Ooh.
I know, a big hypothetical, but
Ooh.
if Elysium Shield picked the other side of the bracket?
Oh, if the real hypothetical, the other side of the
Yeah,
bracket. I don't know. I think yes. I think Valor is overall a very solid team. I think the only caveat I would put in that, and we mentioned this, um, I think a few weeks ago, maybe even against the bad guys, that Valor seemed like they got tilted after,
yeah,
I think, the first game in that series. And one of the things that struck me when I was looking at the results this week in this series against Emerald is the games got shorter and shorter and shorter,
that's true.
throughout, and they got sort of less competitive. I think the first game was very, very competitive overall, right? 37 minutes, 37 to 29 kills. It was pretty close. Boogie was popping off on the Jace. The second game, they fight back, right? 1-1 series. Game three, it's 27 minutes, 26 to 12, and game four is
Yeah.
25 minutes, 24-14. The game sort of
Wow.
seemed like they got less and less close to me, just a little bit, and I'm sort of wondering if that's a similar thing that happened when they did go up against the bad guys. I think a similar thing happened. They sort of lost the first game, and it sort of seemed like it all unraveled for them. And I think that's the
Mhm.
way that they would lose to the bad guys. And I think the way that the bad guys wins is they play this kind of chaotic style. They're coming at you, they're fighting. Oh my God, what do we do? So I think you have to get out ahead of that team. And I think Valor for the most part could, but when they get caught off guard, it seems like they struggle to recover.
Oh, yeah. Of course, they did play a little bit earlier. Forgot to note that they actually did
Yeah,
play obviously in the first round of the bracket. But if they could have played again, I feel like that would have been a super super exciting
I
series,
agree.
and them versus OE Infinity as well. I think would have been really really nice. But that is all hypothetical. Dynasty Chaos Emerald as the seventh seed, now at least top four. That is just, I mean, got to give them so much praise.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, defying expectations in a big way, eliminating the two seeds ahead of them, saying, hey, maybe we should have been a little bit higher in the bracket.
Mhm.
We can sort of start to turn the gaze forward. They'll play OE Infinity next week. The two winners from this week will play next week in the lower bracket. Yet another test for them, right? Where does OE Infinity, where is their power level, but also where's Dynasty Chaos Emerald, right? It seems like they have improved, I would say, from the regular season, the level they were playing at consistently. So will that continue to go up? Are they putting in the work? I think OE Infinity would be wise to study up on this team and not take this as a for granted game at all.
Yeah. Study up, get ready, because you can't write them off. You literally can't.
No.
I mean, maybe after last week, you could say, okay, they beat a Divine Temple that was dealing with roster swap issues all season long, right? That was maybe a really close 6-7. But this Elysium Valor team, we talked about them too, possibly breaking into the top three, top four at points. So they are a legit team. They're ready to go, and they're going to be probably scary, I think, in this next series.
Yeah, they were a serious team. I mean, Elysium Valor was no slouch of a team. They sort of dropped down to fifth. The end of the season seemed like they had a few issues, but this was a serious team that we, had in the top four for a significant amount of the year. Um, I think OE Infinity is still the favorite. I would say. I think Dynasty Emerald has looked really good, but a lot of Cinderella
Yeah.
stories eventually come to an end. I think Infinity is the favorite, but I think by less than I would have said a week ago. Just looking at this matchup, I think you really got to put in the time, do the research, and maybe even come up with something new for the draft, since Dynasty Cast Emerald has shown they're willing to ban away your power picks. They're going to do their research. You better do yours if you're Infinity and come up with something that you can win the series with.
Yep. Gotta do the homework. Gotta get it ready. Exciting to look back on those last week matchups. Obviously, of course, sad to see the bad guys in Elysium Valor go, but do hope we see them in the next season of the Optimal Championship League. But, Carl, moving on to the next week. Exciting matchup in the upper bracket. It's gonna be streamed on Friday. It's the number one seed Elysium Shield versus number two seed OE Nova.
Yes, it is. I think we could talk this one probably in circles forever. So, we'll try to keep it to at least a reasonable amount of time here on the podcast. We don't want this to be an hour long of us going, they could both win. They're both really good. But they could both win, and I think they are both really good. Um, I'm excited to see this matchup, if for no other reason than to see how these teams have evolved since the end of the regular
Mhm.
season. Um, and they haven't played each other in a long time. I think Shield's only serious matchup I think in the last month and a half has been against OE Infinity in that one matchup in the playoffs. Right, Shield's only played one match so far in playoffs, and so has Nova. And Shield, we talked about, played that 8, 9, 7 seeds at the end of the regular season. So how will they go against this really top tier opponent? Hopefully they're ready. They looked ready against Infinity, but these teams just haven't played a whole lot.
Huh. It's like you said, we kind of don't have the full data to kind of analyze this match kind of fully because it has been a while since they played Elysium Shield. Like we said, kind of playing those easier seeds towards the end of the season, which maybe playing the 7 seed wasn't as easy as we thought now. But I digress on that point. Elysium Shield, though, it's kind of like what we talked about earlier with OE Infinity, that they have so many places to play out of. That yes, both these teams could win, but if Elysium Shield, if they can win all three lanes, again, you're just not playing the game. And they've done that for every single series, it seems like, all season long.
Yes, absolutely. I think I just found it in the notes. The last time they played, the only time they played, was in week number one. I'm pretty
Wow.
sure it was in the week two notes podcast, the week two podcast notes. Elysium Shield won a 2-1 victory over OE Nova. So it was either week one or week two. It would have been the second week, actually. It was after week two. But close matchup. And I remember this is when Shield was dropping the first game of almost all their series. So Nova was able to win the first game, and Shield came back to win the next two. Sort of curious to see if we'll see that again. Shield hasn't been up against this real test. If they get off to that slow start, maybe you can drop one game, but you really don't want to drop the first two games in a best of five.
Yeah, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Elysium Shield, their first play game was against Niner
You're right.
Esports,
Yeah,
because
this is
like,
week two. Week two.
yeah, okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
they
My
they
bad.
played a little bit earlier. It's been a while. No, that's totally fine. I was just kind of thinking back because we had actually them on a downtrend, right? That they were like, "Oh
Yeah.
no, you lost to the undefeated Niner Esports," and then like that loss got cleaned up a little bit later. So I think it is exciting, but that's such a good point that they during the early season were dropping those first games, and yes, it was against good teams, but they were very slow starting, and you can't do that. You have to get going in this best of five series, especially when, like you mentioned, in their history, they have only played one game in this playoff so far.
Right. They've played one series. They've played a total of four. They've played a total of 4 games in the last month in the league, right? We're going into week 4. There's been a long time off for this team. They've gotten off to that slow start. I think in a best of 3, the momentum doesn't matter as much. There's just less momentum to really get on. You're only playing 3 games. Hey, we lost the first one. All right, wake up, everybody. Let's go. Buckle up. And I think that's what you can do. But in this long series, you lose the first game. You haven't played in a while. It's the second seed. Guys, we got to pull it together. There's a lot of pressure on that second game. Reverse sweeps don't happen too often for a reason. It's really
Yeah,
hard to do. It's a big deal for a reason, right? The whole meme, congratulations. There's no way you can come back. You've all seen it on
right.
X, formerly known as Twitter. Um, so Shield, they've got to get off to a good start. I think if they win the first game, they will win the series. I think they have looked like a
Okay.
stronger team throughout. If they can get off to a good start, I think they'll do well. But we haven't really seen a lot of Nova either. And Dynasty Cast Emerald shows us that you can evolve a lot in a couple of weeks if you put in, a little bit of extra work. You get the right kind of practice in. So this is probably for me the most exciting match of the entire season thus far.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think unfortunately there's not a lot of stakes on the line because like we're still
Yep.
in the upper bracket for
Yep.
these two teams, right? Like we could see this match again. This could be the grand finals matchup, and like one of these two teams will get another chance to play in that lower bracket final and get a chance to walk right back up. And I know at least in like LCS history, it's like pretty probable for the team that actually drops down to like take their notes, get back, and win that matchup. So you have to be careful.
I would probably put whoever loses this matchup as the favorite to come right back.
Yeah.
I think I'm not entirely sure. Maybe if this is the full double elimination. Will we play a third series? I think so because that's what
No.
happened in the Poro division um,
Yes.
in that tournament. So we could actually see 3 best of 5s
Oh.
between these teams, which
Okay.
you know that might be too much. I think that might be too much. But I think it's both high stakes and not a lot of stakes. Getting into the grand finals up a win in the series, just not having you basically having to be bracket reset. Um,
Yeah.
I think is a big advantage, but it's not that you're going home if you lose it. So I think it's a little
Right.
bit, there's less pressure, but I think the stakes are still important, but it's not do or die.
Yeah, I think winning just gives you the tools, right? That Elysium Shield and Oinova, we said they both definitely have the players and everything to get this game done, or the series done rather, but Elysium Shield, they are starting on blue side. And as much as we've kind of talked about that blue side is such a huge advantage that the counter picks aren't really working in OCL, that you really can just get whatever you want, get those power picks and work off of that. So not only you get it here, but if you win this, if you're Elysium Shield, you get another blue side start. And like you said, if you can start early in the series, if you can win that first game on blue side, it is such a big snowball that you can create.
Yeah, it matters a lot, right? Just getting off to a good. I keep talking about it. It was really, really important for me when I was playing competitively is just to get
Yeah.
off. You're feeling good. Hey, we can beat these guys. We can do it. And I think the blue side is an advantage at this point. We haven't really seen a lot of teams taking advantage of the counter pick. Most teams picking blue side when they have that choice. I think it is an advantage, right? To get that first power pick, 2 out of the first, several. You get the first pick and
Yep.
picks 4 and 5. So a big advantage, I think, to start, especially as a strong team, right? You're a really strong team. You're going to have good preparation. You go into it with a plan in the draft, and I think you can just win in the draft. I think much more easily from blue side. So I think Shield have all the advantages going in. I think it's their series, to sort of
Yep.
falter. Maybe not, their series to lose. It might be a little bit too dramatic, but I think they start out with an edge, and it's sort of up to them to hold and show that they are still the strongest team.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think for these last two matches, we obviously, of course, have to do predictions. I will start us out because
Okay.
I think it's important, like you noted, that I have a contingent prediction. Okay,
Okay.
that if Elysium Shield win the first game, it's gonna be a 3-1. If they don't, it's 3-2. I think Elysium
Okay.
Shield wins the series no matter what, though.
Ooh, I like that. Okay. So you're essentially going 3-1, and then if they lose the first game, it doesn't count. So it'll just be 3-2.
Yeah,
Then
it
let's
doesn't
start
count.
over. All right, I like that. I think I'm going to take Shield. Also, as a prediction, I'm
Yeah.
not going to play the au contraire because I don't think Nova will win. So of course they're going to win. But you know that's the
Yeah.
podcast curse. I like Shield. I'm going to go 3-1. No, uh, no contingency. No asterisk. 3-1 all the way. I'm taking a stand. I'm sure it won't be right, but I think Nova is a good enough team to take a game off of them. I actually like your prediction a lot. I don't think I don't want to copy exactly, but I think I think 3-1 is a good scoreline. I think they're a good enough team to take a game, but I don't think they're a good enough team to completely take the series off Shield, barring some sort of you know draft surprise. I think that's totally possible. I think they are a good enough team. Nova is to spring some good draft preparation, win a couple of games that way, and squeak out the series. But for me, I think Shield's the favorite. I think 3-1's the most likely result.
Yeah, I think it also is kind of like a boring cop out thing to say, but I don't think either of us would be surprised if OE Nova takes it. That
No.
I think Elysium Shield, they seem like the favorite team, but OE Nova, again, we haven't seen them play in so long that there could be something wild happen.
Yeah, I think they're close enough that it could go either way. Last week, I might have actually said this. I would have probably said Valor would have won 3-1 against Dynasty
Yeah.
Chaos Emerald, but I would have been surprised if Dynasty Chaos Emerald won, and I am surprised that they won. So I think these two teams this week, it wouldn't be surprising if it goes either way. I think Shield, because they have looked stronger, I don't think it's going to go to 5 games. I think they are better, but because the margin is close, it takes less of a falter for it to go the other way. And so if Shield comes out a little bit slow, they're just not on their game that day. Nova's a team that's strong enough they can pounce and they can win the game. So I think 3-1 is the most likely result, but we'll see which one gets knocked down to the lower bracket. I think it could be either.
Yeah, we will have to see. And obviously, talking about that lower bracket, one of these two teams going to be eliminated this week. It is the number 3 OE Infinity versus number 7 Dynasty KS Emerald.
Yes, indeed. We talked about this a little bit earlier. We'll sort of wrap the discussion back over here. Infinity, I think, there's a narrative that says they just need to take care of business. It's the 7th seed. They've
Yeah,
had a good Cinderella run. You need to snuff it out and put the top 3 teams in the top 3 spots. I think that's one way you could approach it. I think Dynasty Cast Emerald would beg to argue a different viewpoint. Dynasty Cast Emerald, also a team that they started in a lower bracket. They just haven't played any of these top teams yet, right? Divine Temple, Elysium Valley, they got a matchup, at least one, with one of these top couple of seeds before they got knocked down to the lower bracket. Dynasty Cast Emerald hasn't had that yet. The last real time we got to see them was against Elysium Shield in the regular season. They did not fare so well, but OE Infinity, I think, is certainly a step down from the level of team Shield is. And I think with the improved showing that Dynasty Chaos has had, they are certainly able to win this series. I will say, and it's possible I have a little bit of Cinderella bias. I would
yeah,
not be surprised if Dynasty Chaos Emerald wins this series. I'd be a little bit surprised, but I wouldn't be shocked. I think they're on the up and up. OE Infinity, they beat the bad guys. It looked pretty good, but I think Dynasty Chaos is just such a question mark right now. I don't have a
yeah.
strong feeling about where to put them.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think there's a lot of question mark pings going off right now for them because I'm really just I don't know where to place them, and I think that the one thing they've had going all this playoffs that not only yes they started in the lower bracket, they started without that second life. They've been playing great against teams that have played like stable, right? That like
Hmm.
not the bad guys, not the volatility type, but teams that just want to play straightforward, play through their bot lane. They've been outdrafting them, they've been outworking them, and they've just been outgaming them, really. Like,
I am curious to see how they will go up against Robin. I think Valor also played through the AD carry position a lot. I think in a different way than does OE Infinity through Robin, and I think I'm very curious to see what kind of preparation they come up with. I don't think it will be as simple as banning the Ashe, which I think was effective against Valor. That was one of their main champs. I think against a team like OE Infinity, the champion pool is too wide to just simply say, okay, we'll just ban this champ and we'll be good. So I'm thinking they're going to need to come up with more, potential ideas for counter picks in the bot lane, really strong pressure in the bot lane to try to get ahead there and try to force OE Infinity to play through mid. I think, I think they're up to this challenge. I don't know if they'll come all
yeah.
the way through, but it's sort of another team that plays a similar way, I would say, through the mid and bot lane. I'm curious to see what they'll come up with.
Yeah, and they're starting on red side, right? Well, if OE
Yes, I
Infinity
think
picks
so.
blue side,
Yeah.
which we assume they will be, but yeah, so you have to get those counter picks ready. Like you said, it's also you have to be very careful that you don't just say, okay, we got Robin's 380 carries, we'll just ban all those and then we're good, right, guys? No, because we've talked about they still have so many power points that they still have mid, they still have other picks other than those three that if you go for that, you're just gonna get smashed into their way. So they have to be very creative and really do their homework to make sure they don't get because the draft is probably the biggest part of this game, I would say.
I agree. I think it's really, really important, and there just aren't enough bans even to really even bleh, to even try that strategy. I think say, okay, guys, we're
Tell
gonna
me
ban
about it.
Zaya, we're gonna ban Kaisa, we're gonna ban Ash. Boom, they first pick Caitlyn, right? Power
Yeah.
pick straight away, and then you go, all right, well, that was our preparation. Let's just figure it out, and that doesn't really work. So I think if they put in the time and they come up with some creative ideas, especially in the first couple of games, to say, hey, we're here to fight, they could put up a fight. I think it's possible to just get crushed. Also, I think
Yeah.
this matchup has a lot of variance in which way it could go.
I think so too. Yeah, I think it could definitely go back and forth. I like you said, it wouldn't be super surprising to see Dynasty KS Emerald now, continue that Cinderella story, see how close they are to midnight and, be able to continue this run. And like we said, anything from here on, after beating Divine Temple, everything from here is just extra better than expectations. And I will say, if we predict non Dynasty KS Emerald and they win, Arrow will never let us hear the end of it.
Yeah,
I'm just letting you
he
know.
won't. He won't. I think we got to do predictions. We're at that point. I'll go first this time since you took the lead on the upper bracket. I don't. I'm gonna say something, and I'm not sure what I'm gonna say until it comes out of my mouth. So that's sort of where
Mm,
I'm at. I'm gonna say OE Infinity by a score of 3-2. I think we're finally gonna get 5 games, and I think part of that is uh, expression that I think the series will be close. And I'm
okay.
and I'm not super sure, but I think Dynasty Cast Emerald has the quality, and they've shown the quality that they deserve a prediction of a couple of games at least. I don't think they'll be able to win over OE Infinity, but I think that they'll put up a fight. I think we'll finally get a 5 game series, 3-2.
Yeah, I think it'll be really close as well. I really do. Unfortunately, I'm ready for the arrow to yell at me, but I'm going to predict OE Infinity 3-1 because
Okay.
I really think Robin is so good that yes, they're playing kind of the same way. They're playing through mid and bot, but Robin has shown to be. I know I'm kind of glazing to our editor here, but one of the best AD carries in the league, right? Like seriously.
He has. The numbers don't lie. The numbers do not make you too much. You're not lying to us, right? You're speaking
Right.
the truth. Obviously, Robin is listening now and editing us in and making sure he edits this part in.
Oh yeah.
But I think it absolutely is true. Robin has looked really, really good. I think that's very possible. I think now I'm prepared for the 65-minute 3-0 either direction
Oh
to
yeah.
really prove us wrong. But I do think it'll be close. I think both of us sort of leaning towards OE Infinity, but willing to entertain the possibility that Arrow will get to yell at us.
Yeah, and I'll go with another cop out. I will say, like, I kind of it's like expectations versus want, right? Like, I expect Doe Infinity to win, but I would really love Dynasty Chaos Emerald as a 7 seed to make to the top three. That would be some feel good moments.
I don't think that's a cop out. I agree. I think that would be very cool. With all commiserations to Robin, I think it would. I would be very excited for the Discord to blow up and everybody to sort of see that the win. I don't think they will, right? I mean, my brain is saying I don't think
Right?
they will, but I hope that they win. I think that would be very fun. And most of all, I think we just hope for a good series. Obviously, the streamed series is the winners bracket final. Elysium Shield against OE Nova on Friday, which is the 1st of September at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And then OE Infinity Dynasty Chaos Emerald not on stream, but be sure to check the results in Discord. Maybe Arrow will be celebrating there, so you'll get a little bit of a spoiler that way. But I think we're finally in for some really serious series as we get this deep in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's gonna be really exciting. I'll be there on Friday. Lom's gonna be there
All
too,
right.
so we got a nice little playoff set there going into these last couple weeks. I will say that also, like looking forward, it's exciting that if we get to keep these 8 teams at least that made it into playoffs, there would be so many amazing storylines to follow, especially for Dynasty Case Emerald, who like we said, has had issues throughout the regular season, has faltered in some of their matches, and now is just proving everybody wrong.
It matters how you do in the playoffs, right? There's 8 teams in the playoffs for a reason. Everybody has a chance, and they have showed pretty much everybody, at least us on this podcast, they have showed us up week after week, backs against the wall. Their biggest challenge yet, but I think they certainly are up for it, and I'm excited to see how that series goes. The match is, of course, coming your way on twitch.tv/Optimal Championship League. Llama, any more thoughts before we send this one to the end of the video?
No, I mean, obviously, thank you for being here. Thank you to all the players for still pushing it through in all the regular season, all the playoffs, and good luck with all those who are starting up school.
Absolutely, that's true. Good luck to all those studying. I'm starting law school next week, so hopefully we can get these podcasts out in time. I can't be swamped the first week, right? It's only the first
Right.
week. So I think we'll be okay. Again, twitch.tv/Optimal Championship League. Come say hi to Llama on the desk this Friday. Tell him you are from the podcast. I'll probably be there and be like, I'm from the podcast, because I think that's fun every so often. So we hope to see you all there. Good luck with everything else. and we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye bye.